There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast.
I want to start with a picture that many of you know far too well. An organization has a healthy budget on paper, strong programs, a respected brand in the community, and a handful of major donors who have been incredibly generous for years. Then one of those donors calls to say they need to pause their giving this year, or a big pledge that everyone was counting on gets pushed to next fiscal. Suddenly there's a 6 or 7 figure hole in the plan, and everyone looks at the development team. That's what I mean when I talk about portfolio risk in major gifts. I'm Tammy Zonker. Today we're talking about how you can make your major gift portfolio more shock resistant, so one donor decision does not send your organization into crisis. This conversation is for you if you are an executive director, a development director, a major gift fundraiser, or a board member who feels the pressure of concentrated revenue. Maybe you're grateful for those top donors, and you should be, but you also feel that knot in your stomach that asks, what happens if one of them pulls back? My goal is to help you move from that quiet anxiety to a clear, intentional plan. Let me share a quick story to ground this. A few years ago, I worked with a strong regional nonprofit. Their programs were excellent, their outcomes were strong, and their board was engaged. When we looked under the hood, we saw that just 10 donors were responsible for more than 65% of their contributed revenue. 3 of those 10 were tech investors who had done very well in the market. One of them had made a multi-year leadership gift that helped them expand services. Then the market dipped. That one tech investor lost confidence in their liquidity and asked to revisit the pledge schedule. They didn't cancel. They just needed to slow it down. Inside the organization, it felt like the floor shifted. Hiring plans were frozen. A planned program expansion went on hold. Internally, there was tension between finance and fundraising, and the board started asking hard questions. Nothing wrong happened. The donor was still generous and values aligned. The market simply moved, and the portfolio was too concentrated to absorb the shock. That is the scenario I want to help you prevent. Let's walk through this step by step. The first step is defining portfolio risk in major gifts. When I talk about portfolio risk, I'm talking about how vulnerable your major gift revenue is to changes in donor behavior, donor wealth, or donor priorities. In the broader nonprofit field, we're seeing a clear pattern. Fewer donors are giving, while a smaller number of wealthy donors are giving more. Some recent analyses show top donors providing a very high share of total revenue in many organizations, sometimes well over half of all contributed income coming from just a handful of people or institutions. That can feel wonderful in a good year. It can feel terrifying when the economy shakes or when a donor's interests change. So let me define 3 concepts very simply. The first concept is donor concentration. This is the percentage of your total contributed revenue that comes from your top donors. For example, your top 5 donors might provide 40% of your contributions, or your top 10 might provide 70%. Many organizations have far higher numbers than they realize. The second concept is sector concentration. This is how much of your major donor revenue is tied to a single industry or sector. For example, maybe a large share of your donors are in tech or healthcare or real estate, or they are all tied to one local employer. And the third concept is commitment structure. This is how your major gifts are structured over time. Are they mostly one-time gifts that you need to re-raise every year? Or do you have multi-year commitments that create some stability? When donor concentration is high and sector concentration is high, and your gifts are mostly one-year commitments, your portfolio is fragile. Here's a guiding principle I use with clients. If 5 or fewer donors represent more than 40% of your contributed revenue, you have real concentration risk. That does not mean you should push those donors away. It means you need a strategy to steady those relationships with multi-year commitments and build a wider base of major and mid-level donors around them. So I want you to think about your own organization. Who are your top 5 donors by annual giving? What industries are they in? How much of your budget is riding on their continued ability and willingness to give at the current level? You do not have to share the answers with anyone right now. Just notice what comes up. For the second step to prevent a concentrated portfolio, I want to walk you through a simple portfolio mapping process. You can do this in under an hour, and it will change how you see your major gifts. You do not need a complex tool to start. A spreadsheet works, a whiteboard works, a slide works. Here are the steps. Step 1, pull your top 20 to 50 donors from the last 12 to 24 months. Include individuals, families, foundations, and corporate partners. List their names or initials, their total gift amount, and whether it was a one-time gift or part of a multi-year commitment. Step 2, add a column for sector. Think about the primary source of their wealth or their professional home. Are they in finance, tech, healthcare, manufacturing, energy, public sector, small business, or something else? It does not have to be perfect. An educated guess is fine. Step 3, add a column for geography. Are they local, regional, national, or international? Or which city or region do they call home? Step 4, add a column for commitment type. Is this a one-time gift that you need to renew each year? Or is it part of a 3-year pledge, a 5-year pledge, or a planned gift? Step 5, look at your totals. Now ask a few key questions. What percentage of total revenue comes from your top 5 donors? What percentage comes from your top 10? Do you see a heavy cluster of donors in one sector? For example, do you see that 8 out of your top 15 donors are in tech or real estate? How many of your top donors are on multi-year commitments versus year to year? You can also use AI to speed this up. If your data exports cleanly from your donor database, you can drop into a secure sandbox or drop an anonymized version into a tool like ChatGPT, Claude, or another AI assistant and ask it to summarize the concentration. For example, tell me what percentage of total giving comes from the top 5 donors and group donors by sector. AI is very good at quick pattern recognition. Here's what you're looking for when you review the map. First are fragile patterns. A fragile portfolio might have 2 or 3 donors making gifts that are 10 times larger than everyone else. Most of those donors in the same industry. Mostly one-year gifts with no future commitment. The second are resilient patterns. A more resilient portfolio might have strong top donors, but a healthier spread, where the top 10 donors are closer in size. A mix of sectors. Good portion of your revenue in multi-year gifts. When you see your portfolio laid out this way, you can stop relying on gut feelings. You can point to real numbers and say, we are too dependent on one cluster of donors in this one sector. Or, we need to move 3 of these donors to multi-year commitments. One of my favorite things to say to boards is, resilience does not happen by accident. It is the result of deliberate choices about who you engage, how you engage, and how you structure their giving. The third step for preventing portfolio concentration is talking to donors about multi-year commitments and diversification. Once you see your risk, the next question is how to talk to donors about it. You might feel hesitant to say to a donor, "We rely a lot on you," and that makes us vulnerable. That can feel uncomfortable. The key is to frame this as a shared commitment to mission stability, not as a fear-based message. Let's start with multi-year commitments. When you invite a donor to make a 3-year or 5-year commitment, you are inviting them into a longer story. You're saying we're planning for impact over several years, and your consistent partnership helps make that possible. For example, you might say to a donor, "Given the volatility we are all seeing in the market, we are doing everything we can to plan responsibly." One of the ways we do that is by inviting a few key partners to make a multi-year commitment. It helps us protect core programs from the ups and downs of any single year and focus more of our energy on delivering results. Would you be open to talking about a 3-year commitment in the range of X per year? You're not hiding reality. You are aligning around stewardship. There's a second type of conversation I encourage you to have. I call it the shared responsibility conversation. It sounds like this. "You have been incredibly generous, and I want to make sure we are honoring your investment in a wise way." One of the risks we pay attention to is over-relying on a small group of donors. So as part of honoring your leadership, we are also working to bring more partners to the table. I would love your perspective on who else we should invite into this work. Notice what this does. You acknowledge their importance. You share that you are paying attention to risk. You invite them into the solution. Many donors who care deeply about your mission do not want to be the only ones holding the organization up. Let's talk about diversification. Diversification does not mean you suddenly stop cultivating your top donors. It means you intentionally identify new major gift prospects in sectors or regions where you are underrepresented. Deepen relationships with mid-level donors who have capacity to stretch into major giving over time. Look at your corporate and foundation mix and ask where you can add more balance. Artificial intelligence can help you here as well. You can ask AI to help segment your donor file, identify patterns in giving history, or even draft outreach language tailored to different donor segments. For example, you might say, "Draft an outreach email to mid-level donors who have given for 3 years in a row and might be ready for a more personal conversation." The goal is not to automate relationships. The goal is to free you from some of the repetitive analysis and drafting so you can spend more time actually talking with donors. The fourth step in preventing portfolio concentration is using checkups in internal leadership conversations. You can have the best portfolio analysis in the world, but if your executive director, your finance leader, and your board do not understand the risk, you will keep feeling that quiet pressure without the support to address it. I recommend building 2 formal checkups into your year, one at mid-year, one at year-end. At mid-year, gather your top donor data and share a simple 1-page summary with your leadership. Include the percentage of revenue from the top 5 donors, the percentage from the top 10, any sector concentrations you see, the share of revenue that is in multi-year commitments versus 1-year gifts. Then ask 3 questions in that meeting. First, where are we too concentrated? Second, what is our plan to reduce that concentration over the next 12 to 24 months? Third, what support do we need from the board and leadership to execute that plan? That might mean board introductions. It might mean investments in major gift staffing. It might mean shifting expectations around how quickly new donors can be developed. At year-end, do the same exercise again. What changed? Did you move any key donors to multi-year commitments? Did you add new donors in new sectors or regions? Did your concentration risk worsen, stay the same, or improve? When you treat portfolio health the same way you treat program outcomes or financials, you make risk visible, and manageable instead of leaving it as an unspoken worry. I often say to boards, your job is not only to celebrate big gifts, it is to ask how those gifts fit into a long-term, sustainable picture. That's an important cultural shift. Let me recap the key ideas from this episode and then give you some homework you can do this week. We started by naming the reality that many nonprofits are one donor decision away from a serious budget problem. Wealth is more concentrated. A small number of donors often provide most of the revenue. That can feel wonderful until those donors need to change course. We talked about portfolio risk as a combination of donor concentration, sector concentration, and commitment structure. We walked through a simple portfolio mapping exercise that you can do with your top 20 to 50 donors. We discussed how to talk with donors about multi-year commitments and about the need to broaden the base of support in a way that honors their leadership. And we talked about using mid-year and year-end checkups to bring your executive leadership and board into the conversation in a consistent, structured way. Here's your homework. Set aside 45 to 60 minutes in the next week. Step 1. Pull your top 20 donors from the last 12 to 24 months. List their gift size, sector, geography, and whether the gift is one-time or multi-year. Step 2. Calculate what percentage of your contributed revenue they represent. Notice how much comes from your top 5. Step 3. Circle any donors who are both large and in the same sector as one or two others at the top. That is where you have sector concentration. Step 4. Identify 2 donors you feel are ready for a multi-year commitment conversation. Make a note to schedule those conversations in the next 60 days. And step 5, put a 30-minute portfolio checkup on the calendar with your executive director or board development chair. Share 1 or 2 key insights from your mapping and propose 1 concrete step to strengthen resilience. If you do just those steps, you will have taken very real action toward a more shock-resistant portfolio. Let me name 3 big takeaways I hope you carry with you from this episode. Takeaway number 1, resilience comes from clarity about where your revenue is concentrated and from deliberate choices to reduce that concentration over time. Takeaway number 2, multi-year commitments are not just convenient for you. They are a powerful way for donors to protect the mission they care about from short-term volatility. Takeaway number 3, portfolio checkups at mid-year and year-end turn vague anxiety into shared responsibility. When leadership sees the risk, leadership can help address it. Let me also name a few pain points I know many of you feel related to this topic. First, the pressure of depending on a small number of donors for a large share of your budget, and that quiet worry that lives in the back of your mind every time you read market news or hear about layoffs in a key sector. Second, the discomfort of raising risk with your board or executive director. It can feel like you are delivering bad news or making your own work look shaky when all you are doing is naming reality. Third, the fatigue of feeling like you have to say yes to every request for more revenue, even when your portfolio is already stretched and fragile. Those are real pain points. You are not imagining them. Before we close, I want to share 3 simple quotes from this conversation that you can bring into your own leadership discussions. Quote 1, resilience does not happen by accident. It is the result of deliberate choices about who you engage, how you engage, and how you structure their giving. Quote 2, your job is not only to celebrate big gifts, it's to ask how those gifts fit into a long-term, sustainable picture. Quote 3, if 5 donors hold 40% or more of your revenue, that's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you are ready for a more intentional strategy. I want you to feel empowered, not scared, by this conversation. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't have to say no to generous donors. You do have the opportunity to see your portfolio with clearer eyes, to invite donors into longer commitments, and to bring your leadership into a more honest, constructive dialogue about risk and resilience. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm cheering you on as you build a major gift program that can weather market swings and keep serving your community with fortitude. Keep transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.